All right, welcome everyone to our April 2025 Apereo Micro Conference. I'm Wilma Hodges. I'm a member of the Apereo board and I'm also the Sakai Community Manager, and I'll be moderating today's session. Just a quick kind of housekeeping. Please be sure to stay muted throughout the session, and we'll have time for questions at the end. But you can certainly use the chat throughout the session to ask questions as they occur to you. And then if you wanted to hop on the mic later when we take questions, you can do that toward the end of the session. So let me just remind everyone, if you haven't already, you might want to sign up for our Apereo newsletter. You can go to the Apereo website and scroll down in the footer. There's a link there to join the newsletter, and that will help you stay up to date with all of our micro conferences and other community announcements. So we definitely encourage you to stay connected that way. Today's topic is Open Innovation Lab at the Library, launching students and advancing open source with the curricular and co-curricular project-based learning. So we're going to be looking at how libraries serve as a crucial role in open learning architecture and co-curricular experiences. And we're going to be looking at some of the projects at the Cal Poly Humboldt Library. So it should be a really nice way to see what's happening there and maybe get some ideas that might inspire you for your own innovative projects. Today's speaker is, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to change out the name at the top. That was last month. My apologies. It's on the picture, the correct one. Cyril Oberlander is our speaker today. And he's dedicated to fostering lifelong learning and curating a vibrant and learning environment that positively transforms lives, libraries, and learning. He currently serves as the Dean of the Library at Cal Poly Humboldt since July 2014. He's served at libraries such as SUNY Geneseo in New York, University of Virginia Libraries, Portland State University, and he served as a consultant to the public, academic, and special libraries. Interests include collaborative innovation and software development, space and service design, teaching and learning, library publishing, and open pedagogy. His current projects include 3D Digital Herbarium, GIS Data Archive, 360 in the Stacks, and Discovering Humboldt with Google Maps. Past projects include inventing the first scanning booktruck, launching Open SUNY Textbooks, and more recently working with students to develop open source software solutions, such as Citing Insights, SpaceUse, and HumSpot. And again, my apologies for the typo on the slide. So I'm going to, well, that one's recorded. You can catch last month's webinar on our recording, as will this one be. This one will be recorded as well. So you can let all your friends know if they want to catch it after the fact. So I am going to turn it over to Cyril and let him take it away.
All right, thank you all for being here. I'm so appreciative. Thank you, Wilma, and thank you, Apereo. I'm going to include in the chat the link to my slides and some rough speaker notes. But basically, I really appreciate you being here. So I'm going to start with the slide that says, this is what I'm going to be talking about, and I really appreciate you being here today. And I'm going to start by saying we can do amazing things together. But in context, if you're wondering, where is Cal Poly Humboldt? We're right there. We're about 7 hours of a drive south of Portland, 5.5 hours west of Sacramento, and 5.5 hours north of San Francisco. We're a very remote and rural location, and for some folks, that could be seen as talking about deficit thinking, but I think of it as an opportunity growth mindset, because I'm going to be sharing that the library has grown into its role as kind of a tech industry startup incubator and as a STEM museum. And you'll see that throughout the slides, is that libraries adjust to their communities and the needs of the communities. And so what I'm talking about today with open source programming and software development is that it's responding to a strategic need in our area. Plus, it's a very beautiful place that I'm going to invite you to. I think of things as very project-based, learner engagement focused. So when I think of the library, I think of a learning environment. And when we think about the connections between research, teaching, learning, and scholarship, for me, it's all about being an infrastructure for open learning. Infrastructure, if anybody questions what that do I mean it's like the kitchen sink. If it's broken, you definitely know how the household runs without it. Can we design as a library infrastructure to help transform higher education and learning? Absolutely. We do that also from my lessons learned in the Open SUNY textbook program, as when you want to change the organization, oftentimes you have to look at what's familiar for folks. And so for Open SUNY textbooks, it was how do you publish things normally? And then how we as libraries got together to work together as a publisher working with faculty to write new textbooks that are open access. So we cultivate, how do we change experiences? How do we change the organization? We do that by curating the experiences and oftentimes in project-based learning. So if we want to change the university and curriculum, one of the best ways to do it is think of the library as your lab of curricular and co-curricular experiences, whether it's library publishing, software development, internships, digital humanities, and workshops. We are a support infrastructure that can have a transformative difference in the lives of students and campuses. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's start with the 3D herbarium, because that is my favorite topic, because if you've seen what that looks like, and I hope you did, you'll see these amazing folks, Team Flora of 2023, and how they really helped develop and launch a new way of being inspired by learning botany. And it's an open source project that I encourage you to view the video, but I'm going to skip the video now so we can proceed with the rest of the presentation. But I want to encourage you to watch the video and hear their voices. AJ Beelam, the person in the center, he's the director of the project, and he's an extraordinarily talented project developer, software developer, and has been key to creating this with students. And he was a student who started it off. But let's start with the library. You're used to libraries as filled with wonderful books, and we have 500,000 books, so it's a great place. And usually there's a lot of inspiration in there, but increasingly people are looking for more digital versions of books. Now, we've digitized many of books. So this is a 1884 Pinentium Britannicum, and that's available free. And that's an important role the library plays, is digitizing older works that are incredibly useful even today. But it's still a form of book that a lot of people aren't engaged with. So what we have been doing is trying to find ways to create engaging, immersive experiences that are like books, but different. And so the 3D herbarium came out from an idea to transform what this looks like, which is a digital herbaria. Most of the digital herbaria started around 2000, and they look like this. They are a photograph, digital photograph of a plant specimen that's been dried, flattened, and documented and cataloged. And they are incredible resources, incredibly expensive physical research collections, but incredible ways for botany students to learn about the different plants, their relationships, and even their DNA. This isn't as inspiring as a lot of the works that we're starting to see in virtual reality and augmented reality and other things. So let's start with the origin. The origin story is that, well, we got a dissection table in the library in 2022, and it has 5 humans and 120 animals. And I presented it at Idea Fest for a couple of hours, and I kept wondering, do they do plants? Do they have any plants in this thing? And I started doing research on who is doing three-dimensional views of plants. And not surprisingly, or maybe surprisingly, not really anyone. There was no product for 3D plants, and with good reason. We'll go into that in a second. But what I like to do is take a challenge, which is there is a strategic gap. There isn't a 3D digital herbarium. And I proposed it to Dr. Shireen Bogle's computer science software engineering course. We usually like to give about 4 to 7 challenges to computer software students. And the teams select library challenges often because they're pretty cool projects. And they get to work with us. And we proposed to the 3D herbarium as an interactive digital herbarium Flora touchscreen kiosk project. So you see the kind of the requirements and resources. And in the fall, thankfully, AJ and a group of students, a team of 4 students, prototyped something in 12 weeks. This is their prototype, which is a version of a 3D rendered tree and a prototype of the software. This was phenomenal. It was a 12-week prototype challenge that they delivered, and thanks to AJ and Team Flora. So what do you do when a student's team successfully completes a project that really is a grand challenge? Well, you offer them employment. Thankfully, we hired AJ Beelam. He was willing to continue on and say, let's go. So from the classroom, which was a curricular activity, it became a co-curricular challenge to say, let's build version 1 and release it as an open source project. And so we hired other students and started down the road. For the course of the year, we developed the 3dherbarium.org, which is the site that you see, although we're probably at 1.8 right now in terms of our release. This is an incredible, we'll just say it, an 18-month cycle to build and release a version 1 software is phenomenal and well worth it. So we did it. What do we do now? Well, what's next is, do we add features? Yes. Does it return to the classroom? Well, in fact, yes. Currently, we have wildlife students who are using a version of this called the 3D Exhibits for Learning, which is a prototype for any discipline to work with 3D models and annotations. And it's launching as 3dvertebrates.org. So there's many things you can do with these kinds of challenging projects as open source opportunities in the class, and then post-class in the student employment, which is much needed for students who want careers in software development. This project is fascinating, and you're probably wondering, here's the nice 3dvertebrates.org site where the flying squirrel is shown here. You're probably wondering, where do we get all this funding for innovation? We don't have innovation funding. So if you're wondering, yes, we're always seeking funding, but we also leverage salary savings and any kind of donations for these type of projects. And in fact, the 3D Herbarium has become a reason that library donors want to support the library and this project, is because it captures the imagination inspiring botany. So the Eureka chapter of the American Rhododendron Society gave us a nice donation to support this program, as well as we received an IMLS planning grant. So funding is always available if we can find it and leverage it for more funding. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what does it actually do behind the scenes? Well, there's where AJ Beelam has done an amazing job of doing a lot of APIs. So when you see the 3D herbarium and the beautiful plants and you're spinning them around and clicking on the annotations, what you're also doing is connecting up with the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which provides a lot of taxonomic herbarium information and maps. You're also connecting with some citizen science projects, iNaturalist being one of them, and that provides maps, photos, social media, and even some sign-on functions as well. Wikipedia is there to provide some taxonomic information. Sketchfab is where we host 3D models for uploading and editing, and AJ was brilliantly able to, and most recently, add a lot of the functionality in the 3D herbarium to post the 3D models and thumbnails through the 3D herbarium to Sketchfab, as well as Plant ID. So we'll cover these in more detail, but start with AJ's journey. Imagine as a student who graduated from computer science and he figured out how to prototype this amazing 3D herbarium early version before it was version 1. He had to figure out a lot of things. So he would ask ChatGPT on how do I program for photogrammetry? How do I do 3D models? And then he realized why so many people do not do 3D models of plants. It's hard. I called it the NASCAR of photogrammetry. And the reason is you'll see the yellow flower there. It's missing a lot of details because of the very thin structure that it has, and you're trying to render a 3D model of it using software and a lot of computing power. So a lot of what you're seeing is a tremendous amount of work AJ did to research how do you do photogrammetry well for plants, which is something that very few people have done. He developed a lot of understanding of things like depth of field, ISO shutter speed, and he also learned about different software. Two of the ones that are open source, Mushroom, he uses for photogrammetry using Windows and Linux. The other is Blender, which is an open source 3D modeling software for touching up the holes that we sometimes see in our leaves and our flowers. These are important open source tools that are critical to the success of our project. We also have proprietary ones too, called like PhotoCatch, although that was an early used photogrammetry software that's super easy to use. If you have an iPhone, you can use PhotoCatch to make quick, easy objects, 3D models out of objects, but probably not the best for plants. We also use Metashape, which is used to render the 3D models, and that's thanks to great cooperation with our ITS using the NRP computing system to speed up the process, because it used to take laptops almost a day to complete a 3D model. Now we're into the hours of completing 3D models. Now, you're probably thinking, you've probably seen some of these features, but the 3D herbarium is basically an interactive 3D model. And if I might switch over to this, I'm gonna share, I'm hoping you're seeing this beautiful eucalyptus tree here, or this petals. But you can see that these are very thin structures, and the annotations are simply what the botany students that we hired wanted to record about this. Now, when you click on the different annotations, you can see photos, you can see videos, you can see text, and you can even see another 3D model. You can also visit where are the observations, either from iNaturalist or from GBIF. This plant has been observed, and iNaturalist is an incredible resource because it literally has, I think, over 250 million specimen observations. So you can see plants, insects, animals in many ways. You can also see it in augmented reality and virtual reality. Our 3D herbarium has now 75 specimens and they continue to grow. Bad pun, I know, horrible. Or rather, we continue learning how to digitize and 3D model, but I wanted to share this feature here. This is a community contributed specimen 3D model that allows us to look at how could we add the functionality of anyone can contribute their 3D model, and we would take it through an editorial review process that basically approves it. So AJ is working on some amazing editorial features, and he's incorporated 2 versions of it, one in the 3D herbarium using Jira, and the other one that uses an in-house structure that he's built into the 3D exhibits for learning for the wildlife, for 3D vertebrates. Now, if you get a chance, I would click on the augmented reality version of this because it is beautiful to look at and see it in augmented reality. So there is also a feature called Plant ID, which allows you to upload a photo and it'll help identify the specimen that you took a picture of, which is a feature a lot of phones now have. I know I use it on occasion to understand what is this plant I'm looking at. And then we have experimental activity. Here's a tree on the 3dherbarium.org's homepage that if you use the slider on the side here, you can go inside and learn about the structure, the interior structures of a tree. This is experimental interactivity that we're starting to design to understand how can we learn even more about the plants or the 3D object, and how do we encourage interactivity with the end user who's using this either on their phone, on the website, or on a touch screen of some sort. Now, our future is we are seeking grant funds to continue this project beyond September 2025. The IMLS Branding Grant has been fantastic at trying to understand what do galleries, libraries, archives, museums, and research institutions want to see in a 3D exhibit that is designed for engaging and immersive learning. And so this, we just submitting today at 5 p.m. an NSF grant, and we've submitted an IMLS implementation grant that we're awaiting to hear what the future is. Software development is a fantastic way to work with students. I'll share some previous experience so you get an idea of what the library has been doing. And it's something that I enjoy working with students tremendously, because as a library dean, I don't often work with students directly, but it is incredibly important that I do so, because it really helps you understand what they're going through, who they are, what interests they have, and how do we help launch them. So these 3 folks here helped us with a challenge. We, every year, did a seating use analysis of our library. So we would have sheets of paper and X marks the spot on every chair in the library on this on these sheets of paper. So we'd have essentially 6 sheets of paper for the whole library, walk through and tally them up. A lot of work. In fact, every survey, 2-week survey, took about 600 sheets of paper. So I challenged the computer science students to build us a touchscreen device that would allow us to just indicate where on the floor map are the activities, where this is sitting, and what activities are they doing generally? Are they studying? Is it a social space? Are they working with a computer? And they delivered this amazing system that we now use. We also, together, published an article in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, because I feel it's very important to help our students publish and make sure that they get their word out there and the great work that they're doing. In fact, I brought them in 2019 to the American Library Association's conference in DC, and that was an extraordinarily fun time because not only did they present with me, but they got to be in a vendor booth and answer questions about the software so they could see themselves possibly as a startup. All the projects that the library funds student employment with is an open source, commercializable, friendly license, so that basically the students, if they want to, they could commercialize it first because they're the ones who built it. And that's fine, but the library gets its open source version of it for the employment that they have as students. This is a great model for us, and it's worked really well for students, and it's worked many a times. Here's the biggest challenge that was an ambitious project. How many of you love learning assessment? It's super hard, isn't it? Well, we wanted to figure out how do we help streamline the assessment of student papers, and what could we do to streamline and automate some of that features. And so the Citing Insights team, they developed some software that was remarkable because it would ingest a paper and it would automatically detect the citations and link out to the sources and allow you to add in the kind of rubric that you wanted to use with assessing the student paper, and you could share it among different faculty assessors or evaluators to do a assessment of the student writing using the same rubric and also doing inter-rater reliability testing. Whew, what an ambitious project. The beta release was March 14th, which included some ADA compliance, some UI improvements, some add your own institutional branding to this. We were going to present in Chicago, and then of course COVID got in our way. They continued on through August to finish up some of the basic group functionality for evaluation and analysis. And it is a remarkable project where students have tried to solve how do you help faculty assess student learning, with the goal overall to say, how do you help students writing, because now you understand what faculty are looking looking for in terms of their papers. These are all features of how we can present challenges to students. Now, what did they learn out of the process? Their reflection of the last 16 months of that development was they learned MERN stack, the Mongoose, Express.js, React.js, Node.js. They got to learn a lot about UI and UX. They learned a lot of things that they basically got hands-on real-world experiences with. Everything from login procedures, uploading, to a PDF viewer and how to create highlighting features within that PDF viewer, and so much. So this is in a way augmenting what the curriculum does. The curriculum is a foundational knowledge of a lot of these things, but our project-based learning lab is basically creating a workspace that they get to develop their talent and skills and understanding of these in order to solve a problem. There isn't one way to do this. There are too many ways to do co-curricular project-based learning opportunities. And one that I really enjoy is the hackathon. So we sponsor the hackathon here, and we sponsored one in 2023, and 50 students had an amazing time developing ideas, and this really supports co-curricular learning in a way that really empowers our students and can empower their understanding of open source software ideas. So encouraging challenges that include learning about open source software and adding enhancements or learning what libraries are out there that they can use and incorporate the licenses that are share alike is important. Just this spring, we had the Hackathon for Social Good 2025, and we challenged the hackathon folks with a particular project, and it was, how do you connect a citizen science project to our institutional repository? So how do you connect iNaturalist to Digital Commons? And they did an amazing job of creating something called Humbird, which is connecting iNaturalist and our Digital Commons institutional repository. When you search for, let's say, godwit bird, you'd see the way that they woven in the information from iNaturalist and our list of articles that are in Digital Commons that have the godwit bird in it. Now, they hope to do an interactive map and leverage AI to improve semantic relevance, but in a weekend, there was not enough time to do all of that. But what they did do is they've managed to change the way learners look at how research and community science can be integrated into the same learning environment. And that was the intent of this challenge. There has been a lot of experience, everything from internship to do a 3D building map navigator to using AI to do georeferencing of our aerial photographs. We have about 42,000 plus aerial photographs. How to develop career lifelong learning path or gamify our stacks. It's amazing to see what we can do to launch our students and launch open source software at the same time. So I've been really happy to do this with students because it's really helping them get the experiences they need before they graduate, and also to help launch them after they graduate. I'll share a couple more projects and then it'll be time for questions, and I really appreciate your time today. This is the GIS Data Archive. We're working with Dr. Jen Graham in the ESM, Environmental Science and Management, and the library to develop a new type of archival server for GIS projects. Most institutions will probably recognize that GIS data is often on a hard drive, on a thumb drive, and nowhere really to be seen. But we're creating a layered approach to say, here are all the projects in Humboldt County that can be selectively reimagined as here's this person's project on the, let's call it the waterways of Arcata. And here is the mapping of invasive species of plants. And then but as a person using the data archive, you can select what data sets from different projects to then see together. In fact, Thomas Roca here is one of our students in GIS, but graduating from forestry. He was working on adding historic maps and aerial photographs into the GIS Data Archive. And he got to learn how to use AI to stitch the aerial photographs together more seamlessly, and at the same time help the GIS referencing process, where you sometimes wander into the forest lands of the area, because those are, without features, almost impossible to georeference. And if you're wondering, if you love aerial photographs, thanks to the Tuttle family and the Humboldt County Department of Public Works, we have about 42,000+ of them available online open access. Here is an example of some of them. And that project is an open source project that will be officially launched or released this coming year. There are other ways to engage students in launching pad with open source. One of the ones we really enjoy is the Library Scholar Internship program. So in addition to student employment, we offer students the opportunity to learn with us, and for $500 or $1,000 have a semester or an academic year project, And we have a lot of projects that are listed in our website to acknowledge the work that has been done and also to provide a validation to their experience, real world problem solving, so that they can use that as a reference in their resume or CV. Here's an example of John Gerving, and remarkable computer science student, and his experiences with the 3D building navigator, which is trying to make a game of learning what's all available in the library spatially. And so this was an opportunity for John Gerving to have a project that's a little bit larger than a semester assignment, and incorporating the types of applications and programs that the industry uses in a way that required a lot of do-it-yourself learning and problem solving, and really was a strong success. John Gerving has actually moved on working into the ITS department and is now working on our project with customizing an AI using an open large language model from the Paul Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence. The Library Innovation Hub is a space that we created to house a lot of the library students in projects. So it's staff offices that allow students to work on our amazing projects. And if you're on the third floor of the library, you'll see sometimes hundreds of flashes from that location, and that is where the photogrammetry work is being done. And so you're welcome to stop by and see how they do it. Imagine every plant in the 3D herbarium takes anywhere from 200 to 400 photos to make it the quality that you saw earlier. Lastly, I want to make sure that folks hear that we are a library publisher, and we hope that your library is a library publisher, because one of our goals is every student has the opportunity to publish before they graduate. And we've been publishing over 600 authored works every year. And this can be a curricular experience where classrooms participate in the production of a journal, and co-curricular, the student employees or interns that make it possible. Let's say you have an art student and they really want to try illustrating a book. That's a great internship or student employment opportunity, and it results in an open access publication. All of our materials are freely available online. What the students get from their experience of working on these projects as either author, or in this case, the folks who work behind the scenes who do the text layout, graphic design, and publication, they learn extraordinary skills that prepare them well for their future. This is a classroom of students in the critical race, gender, sexuality studies who produce a journal every 2 classes once a year, and it's amazing to see their voices. These teacher scholar models are incredibly important, not just to publications, but also the open source programming community. I think of things as we are co-creating with students, and whether it's open pedagogy or project-based learning, it's really trying to create a lot of opportunities for benefiting our students in their future, while also helping us solve our real world problems or challenges. And they are phenomenal at solving these things. What we do is we offer as a service, a suite of services, how do we help the co-creation of textbooks with students? How do we help faculty with digital humanities exhibits? These are the things that can really help not only our students and ourselves, it helps strengthen our university's brand, which is important these days. I'm sharing with you a little bit of a work in progress. I just presented at the AAC&U about how open learning and career skills could be launched. And so that link will take you to the handout that I gave, which is really essentially Let's think together about a real world challenge. And then what are some possible solutions? What are the projects and resources and requirements that it would take? And then how might you engage students, and what do the students get out of it in terms of skills? So I show on the back side of the handout examples of the type of challenges and answers to these questions that we gave our students in some of the challenges we give. Thinking through these every summer, I do a list of 4 to 7 projects for the software engineering class every fall. So in terms of the challenges that you're faced with, are there any challenges you would love to have an amazing opportunity engagement with students to see how they would approach solving this? What tools do you give them? What assistance do you give them? And how do you support it? I'll share that a lot of our library spends time focusing on these co-curricular experiences because we think they really matter to launching our students. When you create them as either student employees, internships, volunteers, or even workshops, we always include a mapping or a discussion of how it's preparing you for the careers. Whenever I work with students on these projects, I always review their resumes and work with them on how to improve and identify the skills they're learning. I'm sure you have worked with folks who aren't always clear about the skills they've picked up in an experience like the job that they're currently in. But it's an important role that we can provide our students because the insights is that it's not just a project where you worked with a team and solved how to make an inspiring 3D herbarium. It's you've learned so much research skills and incorporating a bug fixes process to understand the best way to deliver a product that doesn't have any downtime. There's so many details that we have to help our students with, and at the same time giving them experiences like mock interviews, or in our case, occasional sprint presentations. Oftentimes they're structured once a semester, or in the case of some of our projects, every 2 to 4 weeks. That way we are really giving them the opportunities to learn and build their presentation skills. This is an example of a tool that we use sometimes with our students, which is how do you describe a particular job? And in this case, it's the 3D herbarium botany assistant and computer science assistant. How does it map to the NACE competencies or careers? And then what does the first draft of the resume look like? And how do we help see themselves in the job that they are doing, where they feel empowered that this experience in a year gives them all this amazing skills and knowledge that they can put on their resume. Because that's what we're really trying to do here, is support our students while at the same time solving our challenges. Now, there are many questions to consider. What project, internship, or skill activities do students value for their career identity and journey? How might our projects be opportunities for students and be strategic for us? And then what can we do to design these as co-curricular instructional services that are easily added in or connected to the curriculum? And in the future, what micro-credentialing can we do to help promote our students for their careers? I want to thank you for being creative and collaborative innovators. What you're hearing is that libraries have definitely shifted from collections to engagement, and in a way, producing new collections or making them more visible. One project at a time, we connect people and ideas, and how the community and the academy connect And in something I like to share is that the library is always about the past, present, and future, and we are about opportunities. Which brings me to one thing. Speaking of opportunities, come visit anytime. You'll see our HALA simulation, which is next to the books. You'll see a flight simulator, a digital dissection table that became the precursor to, hey, let's imagine ourselves with plants. A fire table where you can see simulated digital fires anywhere in the world and fight them. Augmented reality sandbox. And we're even working with engineering student teams currently to make our library stacks an engaging interactive with exhibits that you can interact with. Earthquake table, a wind tunnel, a bunch of things like that. Now, May 2nd is Idea Fest. You're invited if you'd like to hear music, dance, if you want to see dance, if you want to see 200 to 300 poster presentations in the library. It's a very fun time. And lastly, the Innovation Summit. We are having a number of speakers. Some of these will be available online, and it's April 30th and May 1st. And they should be remarkable. Mark McBride from Ithaca S&R is going to talk about AI and open education. Now, questions, and I really sincerely thank you for the time. And I apologize, I probably went way too long. So let me go back to this and stop sharing.
Yeah, we actually have 10 minutes. Let me get that incorrect slide off of there. There we go. That's better. All right.
So thank you all very much.
That was an amazing presentation. I have to admit, I'm a little overwhelmed by all the projects, but they were truly inspiring. And I don't know if anyone has questions that they would like to ask. Please feel free to type them into the chat, or if you prefer, you can turn on your microphone and ask your question. We have 10 minutes, so, we still have a little bit of time for questions.
And I'll just say, start with small projects and see and learn how to develop the rapport and the tools to work with students, because every project is something of a lesson learned and learning opportunity. And what I find is that it gets easier and easier with time. So that's the only reason I'm working on a few projects at the same time right now. Any questions? And thank you all very much. Oh, I'm glad you're interested in the Cosmos and the Stacks idea. I was inspired by the Biodiversity Museum at University of British Columbia, the BT Biodiversity Museum. And I thought, if they can do such an inspiring space with locked research cabinets, I think I could do something pretty cool with 500,000 books on every topic in the universe. Ooh, that's a really good question. Our library publishing requires 1.5 FTE staff, so a librarian and a half-time staff. And then students, I would say it's ranging between probably $30,000 to $60,000 in student employment a year, depending on sort of what we're all doing. And it is well worth it, because if you really want to, if you see the reaction of a student who's become an author, and you see the transformed nature of who they have become, it tells me that we're on the right track in higher education, because what we're really doing is transforming lives. And whenever you see that, you know that it's a great strategy, and we'll just keep supporting it. I'm glad you're interested in that topic about citizen scientists and institutional repositories. The IR is digital commons, so it isn't an open source one. We are creating another pathway to connect to CSU's ScholarWorks. We just needed the proof of concept done first. And why we're doing the citizen scientist connection is because in many ways, we often write for ourselves in higher ed. And in order to really engage the community at large, it's wonderful to see the amazing work they're doing. The irony, if you're wondering, is if you look up on Science Direct, Elsevier Science Direct, iNaturalist, you'll see that the number of articles using, research articles that are using the data sets of citizen science has increased almost logarithmically over the last 10 years. And so it's really interesting to watch that the more we can engage our community, the more they understand science and what we're doing, the better. Ooh, Patrick asked the toughest question. Thank you, Patrick. I think it's a really important one to think about sustainability in mind. So part of the reason why if we fund a student project, that it has to be released under an open source, kind of an MIT license or an open access, is because we want it to be able to continue, if not by the students, somebody else who's interested in this kind of solution. However, we do try to find the best way to sustain the project. The 3D Herbarium, we're trying right now grants for establishing a very stable, easily maintainable software as service version of it. And with the idea of how do we create a cooperative funding structure to continue it on if there are enough institutions that are interested in these ideas collectively. But that is a tough one because it either could easily be commercialized or it could be a cooperative. But cooperatives are tough, as you know, and we are looking at different models, and we appreciate any and all advice. Yeah, I'm glad students are graduating, and it's sad to see them go, but it's wonderful to see them go. So how do we continue on this? The more institutions that participate in cooperatively supporting a software solution that's open source, the better, because that means that if any institution were to change, have to change, it's more resilient to the changes that are happening in higher ed. Ooh, yeah, I think that would be phenomenal. We'll know I just talked about 3D printing, and yeah, some of the models can be 3D printed. And part of what we've seen is we've gotten requests for the amazing photogrammetry plants by artists, of all things, to allow the model to be used as a for either a projection system or a 3D printed object that's part of their landscape that they're creating. I just think it's so cool just to have an augmented reality version of the plant in my room. That's been a fun one, but I think we don't quite know how far this is going to go. But as we make the 3D exhibits for learning, any discipline kind of a 3D exhibit, it'll be fun to see. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. You've been very generous. Are there any other questions or comments? Or maybe some cool things that you guys are doing that you'd like to share from your library or from your open source project. I should put in the link to the slides again in case anybody wants to look through them again, and please feel invited to come visit us anytime. I'm happy to give you a tour, and we really appreciate your interest in the kind of work we're doing, and kudos to AJ and Team Flora for making such an exciting way to look at plants.
Well, I'd like to add my thanks as well. This was a truly amazing and inspiring presentation. I really enjoyed seeing all these projects and learning about how we can encourage students to become creators and to take that real world experience with them into their professional lives. So that's really a wonderful pathway to set them on. So that's something that open source can do, I think, a little more easily because it's open and it can be kind of woven into the educational experience, unlike other more commercial projects. So so that's a really awesome thing that you're doing, and please keep doing it. And we really appreciate you sharing all this with us today. Thank you everyone who attended. I hope you got a lot out of it and can maybe kind of, let some of these ideas percolate and come up with some of your own to carry on the torch there. So once again, thank you everyone for attending, and Cyril for presenting, and I hope you will join us next month for our next micro conference. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.